Benjamin Netanyahu said that he will not do another ceasefire negotiation in the next 45 days. What's happening in the next 45 days? That's a very specific number. The American elections. Because he knows that Donald Trump is his guy, is saying he's not going to do anything until there is another president. IDF is live in English to justify today's Lebanese bombing. Yes, we are now going to talk about today's bombings in Lebanon. Israel has killed 356 people so far in Lebanon, the majority women and children, an identical situation to what happened in Gaza. And what is going on in Gaza? They are now moving into the Lebanese portion of their full-scale war, and they're doing the exact same things in Lebanon as they did in Gaza. First, they blow up all aspects of civil society. They just destroy entire city blocks, reduce them to rubble. Then they inevitably, once they feel like they've punished and blown up the area enough, so they feel comfortable enough for their troops to actually operate in the region, they blow that up. They call all the civilians human shields, and then they turn around and move their troops in when they feel a sense of safety and security. Okay, here's Daniel Hagari.
The IDF makes vast efforts not to hit civilians and make every effort to mitigate harm to civilians during operational activity. Regarding the high number of casualties, everyone is a tragedy in Lebanon. Among those killed were a large number of Hezbollah terrorists who were next to the weapons that we targeted. Israel is facing threats on all fronts and continuing to act against them in defense for the people of Israel. We have many other missions to carry out. We have to bring back home all our hostages that are held in brutal conditions by Hamas. We have to bring them back home in all means. We have to continue dismantling Hamas capabilities in Gaza. And we have to bring security to every Israeli citizen in the north and in the south. Questions, please.
2 questions from AP. The first, Israel has been battling Hamas for nearly a year, and it still hasn't realized all of its goals in Gaza. Are we looking at the possibility of months of fighting in Lebanon as well? Second question is the army prepared for a ground invasion now? And if the order comes, how quickly could ground forces move in?
Israel has been battling Hamas, this is true, for a year. Yeah, Hamas did the 7th of October, a horrible massacre. It's almost a year. We have to fight and dismantle Hamas and enduring defeat to Hamas. There is no other way. To make sure there is security in our borders and to bring back home all our hostages in all means. In the same time, the world should remember, on the 8th of October, Hezbollah started a war. Israel did not attack Lebanon, did not attack Hezbollah. It's Hezbollah on the 8th of October started firing on Israeli civilians in the northern border, and he's been doing this for over 11 months with 9,000 rockets, and 60,000 Israelis have left their homes. We have to act to stop the threat of Hezbollah. Hezbollah was planning to do a larger scale of massacre than the 7th of October in the northern Israel. And we will have to make...
we just always... It's so interesting that it's Israel always doing a preemptive first strike. They always, luckily, there's always an imminent threat. It's another Holocaust right around the corner. That's why they have to do a genocide beforehand.
In full readiness, and we will do whatever is necessary to bring back home all our citizens to the northern border safely.
Question from CNN. The cabinet has declared a special situation nationwide. Rockets have been fired at Haifa today and near Tel Aviv. You've killed hundreds in Lebanon. Is Israel prepared for a third Lebanon war?
The special situation that was declared by the government allows us to do different kind of things in the home fronts. We still haven't changed the policy yet. and we are looking and observing the situation continuously all along the day, and we will do that also tomorrow. We have to make sure that we provide safety for our citizens, and we will do that also in attack and in defense as well. And then we have to say that the resilience of Israelis is what gives us a lot of power in the IDF to keep on doing attack and defense and doing all this war for many, many months. The resilience of the Israelis is strong, and we are ready to face whatever it needs for the future. And regarding the condition of the third Lebanon war, we are not looking for wars. We are looking to take down.
Yeah, they're not looking for wars. It's just they keep finding it. I don't
7th
know
of October threat in the northern border. It have to be a safe border where Hezbollah is pushed back from the border, and there are no threats like missiles, rockets, UAV threatening our communities, our citizens. This is our mission, and we will do whatever is necessary to do to achieve this mission. We hope to do it as shortly as we can.
ABC News. Is what we've seen today the beginning of an all-out war in Lebanon? How do you think the coming days will look like for the IDF and for civilians of Israel and Lebanon?
We've been facing in the north for over 11 months for our citizens. Every day looks with rockets on their heads going to bomb shelters. Those are citizens that for over 11 months.
Still believe this shit? I mean, dude, I'm sure you talk to people that are dumb enough to still think that, like, you know, I'm sure there are people who are still dumb enough to believe this dumb shit. I mean, look at this. Look, I just saw this. Look. Houthis raided a girls' school in Yemen. They are expelling girls from school. Hasanabi interviews viral hot Yemeni TikTok pirate, 13K likes, right? Like, people still are talking about this sort of shit, okay? What this person is posting about is completely unacceptable, okay? What, like, the Houthis are doing, if this is what's happening, okay? But if you have this level of smoke for the Yemeni population, okay? If you have this level of smoke for the Yemeni population and you see the humanity, it's also a lie. That's not what happened. I don't know what happened. It doesn't matter, okay? Because if you see the humanity of Arabs, if you see the humanity of Yemeni people, only when you can, like, make a counter argument that is an effort to justify their endless bombing, you do not care about them, because you're doing this in the midst of, like, Israel blowing up 357 people in Lebanon. You know what I mean? You just don't give a shit. You don't give a about these people. You only want to talk about it in an effort to, like, justify and defend American imperialism in the region, to be like, look, they're barbaric. They're barbaric monsters. That's it. It's the same principle behind how the media immediately launched an offensive campaign against Joe Biden when he pulled out of Afghanistan, to be like, oh, well, look at the green zone. Look at how beautiful the Afghan women and their living conditions were in Afghanistan until the Taliban took over. And it's like, I'm not pro-Taliban. I don't want the Taliban to govern Afghanistan, okay? But America's actions in Afghanistan are directly responsible for the Taliban behaving in the way that they're behaving, and also are directly responsible for them being the prominent governing party in Afghanistan. Okay? It's ridiculous. And also, it's additionally ridiculous when these guys look at, like, obviously awful things happening around the world, and then their goal is to be like, oh, how do I make this about some Twitch streamer, dude? You're a delusional weirdo, okay? You are just a weird guy. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's never a moment where I look at a situation, an ongoing atrocity that I'm covering, and go, how can I make this about my perceived enemies? You know what I mean? Or even worse, because, like, that guy randomly just hates me because some YouTuber he likes hates me. You know what I mean? Engagement farming of this degree in the midst of an ongoing genocide is psychotic. And I think it's probably because there's a level of Islamophobia attached to it. And that's another way to, like, repeat these Islamophobic sentiments. It gives them permission to behave like this. That's it. Every time I bring up the genocide that is happening to my dad, he immediately goes to defeating Hamas. How can I debate him when he's so focused on Hamas and Israel defending itself? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know, like, I don't know why you're debating your dad. Just try to explain to them the humanity of the people that live there that are just like blowing up and losing their lives. And that could help. It blows my mind how obvious the point that you're making is real. And still these people try to justify their bullshit and hatred. What a shitty society we have. It is impossible to overcome that level of social conditioning. This is post-war on terror, post-9/11 mania running rampant through American society once again. It's a very comfortable skin that a lot of people immediately snuck back into. That's all it is, okay? That's all it is. You do not care about children being blown to bits at all when America's doing it or when Israel is doing it. You only care about it as a talking point. You only care about it as a talking point if it's like something that you can somehow flip back to, like why they deserve to be blown to bits. That's what this is, okay? Please, no way people are still supporting it. Yes, they are. Of course they're supporting it. They are not invested in the truth at all. This is how reactionary attitudes fester in society, okay? And especially in this situation, a lot of people are just like far removed from seeing the humanity and have only seen the inhumanity. Their only interaction with Arabs, with Muslim people as a whole, is through the lens of them being barbaric monsters who are backwards, who deserve to be blown up by Americans, who deserve to be blown up by military. So if that's all you know, okay, if that's all you have encountered your entire life, and you live in bump nowhere in Iowa, Ohio, wherever the right? Of course you're going to be like, yeah, the media is telling me that these are Hezbollah scary terrorist guys, and I guess they deserve to be blown to bits because our most moral military ally, Israel, the most moral democracy, the only democracy in the world, is blowing them up, and they wouldn't do anything wrong.
There are growing fears of an all-out war in the Middle East. The death toll is climbing in Lebanon as Israel and Hezbollah exchange attacks across Israel's northern border. The latest attacks are prompting concerns of increased...
There's a sub that popped up overnight, which is a clone of interesting as fuck, mind-blowing things we should have posted about Muslims in Yemen. And there was like 1,500 comments only about you. It got deleted, but it was obviously supposed to be an anti-Islam thing. But like bots up, and they were just talking about how you are anti-Semitic. They were talking about you like you were mentioned in the post, but you weren't. Bot glitch. Oh, I would love to see that. If you archived it or snap some posts about it. That's hilarious. No, it's like, it makes sense. It makes sense to bot something like that. Reddit is botted into oblivion. It's like very obviously a thing that happens. It's a really good way to like massage discourse. If you don't want to attack the problem head on, a good way that you can do that is by bringing down people who speak on these matters. You know what I mean? It's not just Hassan bad equals likes. What you fail to understand is, in many instances, I always say, oh, dude, when people come to my chat and go, hypocritical socialist, what do I always say? I say, okay, I'm a capitalist. What changed? Okay, now listen to my argument. Now try to take up my argument. If you have an issue with the things that I'm saying, the things that I'm presenting, okay, beyond what you perceive my opinions to be, okay, if you can now tackle the argument, that would be great. And they have no counter to that. Why? Because there is no real purpose in doing the hypocrisy shit, right? There is no real purpose behind the hypocrisy baiting other than just simply stating, don't listen to this guy. He is bad. Don't listen to this guy. He's a bad guy. That's it. And if you can get enough people to not listen and not be charitable, okay, then it's great. You didn't have to engage with the argument. You just shut off a bunch of people from ever actually analyzing the argument. It's a successful way to propagandize. And it's almost always directly a consequence of the things I speak to and not necessarily what I do. Okay, that's it.
Violence spreading across the region. The Israeli military claims to have hit more than 300 Hezbollah targets. Officials say the group has hidden weapons in residential buildings. Lebanese health officials say upwards of 270 people were killed.
Yeah.
And more than...
Israeli officials say they're hiding weapons in buildings. Lebanese officials say a lot of civilians died.
1,000 injured in the strikes. It marks the single deadliest day of fighting in nearly 20 years. BBC News Middle East correspondent Lina Sinjab is in Beirut, Lebanon. She joins us for this. Thanks for being here. What is the situation in Beirut right now?
Well, it's a very tense situation. As you mentioned, today was the deadliest in the south. More than 300, locations were targeted. And just before I come on air, there was a targeted attack here in Beirut, in Dahye, in south of Beirut, in Hezbollah stronghold. The Israeli, officials are saying that they've targeted a Hezbollah figure, but we still don't know about the damage that this attack has caused to civilians.
My NBC feature dropped as well, the Stay Tuned one. Behind the scene with Twitch streamer Hasanabi. We'll look at that later as well. There's a lot of this kind of stuff happening left and right. Kamala supports this. Fuck yeah, she does. Everybody supports this. This is American foreign policy, baby. It's much harder to find. It's much harder to find someone who doesn't support this. Okay.
Because these areas are condensed with civilian population. And exactly that's what happened today in the morning.
Good evening from Lebanon. I'm still alive. We moved from the south up to Beirut. They even bombed the main road that connects the south with Beirut. Stay safe, chatters.
Airstrikes that happened in the south, the deadliest since this war started, that it targeted towns and cities and villages where it's condensed with civilians. Women and children were killed, and thousands of people are on the flee again. Some of them have fled for the third time since this war started and have nowhere to go. There are people who are fleeing to other cities, and some are arriving in Beirut. This whole country is now on alert and on emergency, fearing for more escalation to come.
Hezbollah has vowed to continue launching rockets at Israel until a ceasefire is reached. Is there any other statements that we're getting from Hezbollah on whether they are going to ratchet up their retaliation?
Well, this is the statement that has been consistent by Hezbollah since the war started in Gaza, since last year. And they've been launching rockets from southern Lebanon on Israel as well. They have done this in a way that is calculated so that they, continue with their statement in support of the Palestinians, but also not to cause huge damage that will reach them to a point where, the whole country could be dragged into a full-fledged war. But that's different since last week, since the attacks, the pager detonation that left at least 3,000 people injured and, dozens killed, and followed by a bombing in Dahye as well, killing top leaders of Hezbollah. And just now as well, today is a deadliest today, and another airstrike in Dahye. So all of this would leave Hezbollah under pressure to retaliate, to respond.
Do you think we'll see Israeli boots on Lebanese soil, or will it not come to that? No, it will, I think. I think it will come to that. These kinds of bombing campaigns are only conducted. These kinds of bombing campaigns are conducted. It's not tit for tat. It never was tit for tat to begin with, but although Israel is responsible for 80% of the entire bombing between northern Israel and southern Lebanon, Israel has obviously been overwhelming in its bombing campaigns, okay? Since October 7, this is different. This is, in intensity and frequency, this is more similar to what they did in Gaza. First, they destroy as many aspects of civil society as possible. They try to kill a shit ton of people. They do these first strikes, and then they move in with ground troops. Lebanon is not Gaza, though. I know, but Lebanon in many ways is Gaza. Okay, when they're talking about Dahiyeh, you have to understand what Israel is doing in Gaza is called the Dahiyeh Doctrine. Okay, a doctrine of blowing up with disproportional use of force all matters of civil society in an area that you're occupying was originally implemented in Lebanon. Okay, and also whoever the Israel is fighting against is all of a sudden Hamas. You have to understand that it's Hezbollah, it's Hamas. And they're anti-Semitic, and they're only operating on the basis of anti-Semitism. They're just doing Jew hatred. That's what it is. And every single person is a civilian shield. Is all the human casualties that are involved in this are just unfortunate consequences, even though it is the direct military objective. Okay, for Israel, it is the direct military objective is to just wipe out entire segments of society. And then once they feel comfortable enough, they bring their spoiled ass troops with the Merkava tanks and roll them through the streets. That is what it is. And that is what's going on here. Now, of course, there's a difference between Hamas and Hezbollah. Hamas is in an area that Israel is the belligerent occupier of. They have many limitations in terms of like collaboration from the outside resistance, the axis of resistance against Western imperialism in the region. They have a hard time maintaining supplies. They have a hard time training. In terms of Hezbollah, which is a standing military that has operated in the region and has a shit ton of experience in terms of like combat. Okay. And their funding mechanism and their logistics are significantly better in terms of like what they can get from Iran. And their military hardware is significantly better than Hamas. Hamas does not have the same level of rocket strikes, like rocket and targeting capabilities that Hezbollah has. And considering how hard of a time Israel has had with Hamas, an ascetic resistance force that was created inside of a complete closed circuit that was maintained and mass surveilled by the Israeli government. If they're having a hard time with like 17, 18-year-olds in flip-flops wearing busted ass Adidas, rolling up to their tanks and just lobbing a grenade on their $30 million Merkavas, they're going to have a much harder time with a military force that is an actual standing military force that has significantly better capabilities, that has actually stopped Israel's incursion in the past. Do you understand? So that is, I think, the reason why they did a lot of the military stuff that they did beforehand. The pager attacks, like I said, were supposed to happen while the incursion was occurring, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of smarter people than myself, including people who don't agree with me in terms of like Israel being a parasitic force in the region, a truly awful force of the evil in the region and death and destruction in the region. So for that reason, I'm pretty certain that like I even people who don't consider Israel to be cancerous also have made that same exact analysis that like the terror attacks on the pagers, the pager explosion attacks, like this coordinated terror attack in Lebanon came too early. It did not make opportunistic sense. And they probably did that because they were getting desperate, and it should have happened most likely like either now or when they actually were going to bring in boots on the ground into Lebanon. Anyway, this shit's going to stop until the U.S. are actively sending troops for Israel's defense. This shit's not going to stop until the U.S. are actively... No, it's not going to stop after that either. That's the problem. I think we are bouldering towards another major conflict in this region. It has already started, and I think that the United States of America is going to actively go into war. That is what I am seeing. I hope it doesn't happen, but it feels like it. It feels like it is going to happen. And it's kind of crazy to consider this because if you were in here months ago, I've said exactly this. I told you Benjamin Netanyahu is personally motivated in continuing the genocide in Gaza and even extending that into Lebanon in an effort to draw in American troops in support of Israel's genocide. I told you this, and I told you that this would be the spoiler role that he would play in the American election. Haaretz came out with a report. Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday that he will not do another ceasefire negotiation until, in the next 45 days. Now, you might be wondering what will happen in the next 45 days. What's happening in the next 45 days? That's a very specific number. The American elections. Benjamin Netanyahu, for his own personal goals, because he wants to avoid going to prison, and also because he knows that Donald Trump is his guy, is saying he's not going to do anything until there is another president. I told you this. I told you this for months, and people did not listen to me because what the fuck do I know? And he's doing it. I don't even know if you can consider this to be an October surprise. I mean, I've tweeted about this many times over as well. I'm sure you can pull this up. I don't even know if you can call it an October surprise if it's not a surprise at all. If Benjamin Netanyahu has telegraphed that he was going to do this and that leaving this on the table, it was an unimaginably up situation for the Democratic Party, even in terms of like the electoral calculation that you're making. It is not an October surprise if Benjamin Netanyahu straight up is like, yeah, I mean, this is what we're doing. I said it to Ro Khanna. I said it directly to Ro Khanna in the conversation that I had. And obviously, the electoral calculation here is the least significant aspect of this. Okay? Here. Finally arrived at really solid positions overall, with one obvious, glaringly obvious weakness, which is Israel, which is just like standing there waiting to be the October surprise. That is not even a surprise. It's like everybody knows that Benjamin Netanyahu is in the tank for Donald Trump and is getting increasingly more unhinged every single day, and like not trying to put forward like weapons transfers as a condition in an effort to curb Israel back, like in an effort to rein Israel in, is basically just allowing them to run the table.
Yeah. Like their calculus is, if we say like, weapons will never be conditioned, maybe they won't try to us in October. And
the only thing that I mean, this is going to sound a little nutty. We will speculation alert. Okay, a little tinfoil, but the only thing that will change the trajectory of this in a way that is beneficial to the American State Department interests is if there is, like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but a 9/11 style attack on U.S. soil conducted by, whether it's a false flag or not, by people that you can point back to and say Iran backed or Hezbollah backed or even Hamas backed, which is even the most laughable. How the would Hamas conduct something like that? When that happens, or if that happens, then you could get Americans to be angry and invested in Israel. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Because anything short of that, right now, 54% of the American public does not want American troops to go and die defending Israel, unless there is a way to draw America into having a personal investment in doing death and destruction in the Middle East once again. Okay, I hope to God that a thing like that does not happen. Okay, I really, really, really hope that it does not happen. But like I said, that would be the only thing that would change the calculation. I would say almost in favor of the party in charge.
Probably going to do that anyway, I would assume. I don't know if they're...
Anyway, let's continue.
Fund in a way that will, save their position. But at the same time, they are also under pressure internally from people in Lebanon.
And there's also this stuff too, like Lebanese here. There's so much hate on Hezbollah from the Lebanese people. We just don't want to fight Israel. We just want to live our lives. Like, got it, dude. Yeah, Israel will totally leave you alone if it wasn't for Hezbollah. Yeah, definitely. No, they definitely would, for sure. They famously always do that. That's why they did that before Hezbollah was even a thing, famously. Notoriously, Hezbollah, the paramilitary group that was, designed after Israel's invasion of Lebanon, actually was Israel doing foresight ahead of time. When they invaded Lebanon, they knew that there would be a Hezbollah-style militant group. That's why they invaded, to stop it dead in its tracks. Yeah. Also, how can you live in the region and be so oblivious to like what Israel does where there is no Hamas? Look at the goddamn West Bank. What do you think about how Israel's using Palestinians in Israel like Nazareth as a propaganda? I think it's really gross and really f***ed up, especially considering the history of Nazareth, as Hasanabi heads that have been watching for quite some time know. Famously, Nazareth was the only place that was like spared from the ethnic cleansing campaigns, directly as a consequence of like a World War II veteran from Canada being like, yeah, I feel like this is a bad look. Yeah, we probably shouldn't do an ethnic cleansing to the people that are like direct descendants of Jesus. Okay, it will probably piss off a lot of people in the Western world. We might as well not do that until you give me like in writing, until you want to put your name on this ethnic cleansing operation. I'm probably not going to do that. And then he didn't do it. He literally didn't do it. And that's the only reason why they spared Nazareth, which has like the highest number of Palestinian citizens of Israel inside of the boundaries of Israel, which is really interesting because I think it was, what the was his name? God damn it. The first prime minister, Ben Gurion, when he visited Nazareth, he was like, why the are there so many Arabs here? He was like, what happened? I thought we worked this out. Like, I thought we personally worked this shit out. Why are there so many goddamn Arabs here? He was like shocked personally.
on whether supporters of Hezbollah who've paid the high price since this war started, or by the ordinary Lebanese, that no one ever wants this country to be dragged into a full-fledged war.
That said, how concerning is this latest escalation, this sort of back and forth for the broader situation in the region?
Well, this region has been going into this tension for a long time, but this recent war in Gaza have made regional and border countries are on edge. We've had, the Yemenis involved, the Iraqis involved, the Iranians threatening. We've had assassinations even in Iran happening. Of course, Syria is also in the calculation, where constant bombardment and airstrikes targeting also Hezbollah figures inside Syria. But Lebanon is the country that is more, fragile and more, at a hostile situation, given the proximity and of the border and the tension with the Israelis, and given that Hezbollah's stronghold is here in Lebanon. This is their fertile land, basically, for their commandments. But this is...
Yeah, his name was Ben Dunkelman, the Canadian World War II veteran. Why Israel has silenced his 1948 story of Nazareth's survival. We've covered it before. I've talked about this extensively, but here's a Mondo Weiss article about that, where they were just like, yeah, dude, that's crazy. Maybe we shouldn't ethnically cleanse. The Palestinian Christians population there was much higher at the time too. This will probably piss off a lot of the people in the West. Maybe we shouldn't do that to direct descendants of Jesus. Do you support Israel? Are you nuts, dude? Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about? No, I do not support Israel. Even the New York Times photojournalist is laughing at how stupid your question was. She's snorting. You made her snort. Jesus Christ, dude. This goes to show I could be saying anything. Just I feel like they're not paying attention to any goddamn thing I'm saying. You know what I mean? They're just it's crazy. It's crazy.
Is what is putting Lebanon on the brink of a war, and really the days to come, maybe the hours to come, will be decisive in the fate of this country.
Nina Sinjab, thank you.
Pentagon has announced the U.S. is sending additional...
The mass displacement looks exactly like 2006, but this time no cheering for the resistance. This time only fear and helplessness. People are tired, broken, depressed. This is bullshit. The number of people I've seen offering rooms or flats for people evacuating from the south, the number of supportive visits, and this post underplays the pushback against Hezbollah in 2006, which then turned to full support as Israel's atrocities grew. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi has chosen a name for the military's offensive operation against Hezbollah in Lebanon, Arrows of the North. Nice, man. Thank God. Real villain shit, dude. They're on their villain era. All right, I got to pee
Troops
real quick.
to the Middle East as the fighting escalates between Israel and Hezbollah. More than 40,000 US personnel are already in the area. Well, for more on this, we're going to get the latest from our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, who joins us now. Kimberly, do we have any idea how many and what sort of troops the US is planning on sending?
Yeah, well, as you point out, there are already 40,000 in the region. But in terms of what that small number of additional forces is, the Pentagon still isn't saying. Now, Major General Pat Ryder, the Pentagon spokesperson, also did not specify when making this announcement what exactly these troops would be doing. So there are a lot of questions with regard to this statement that has been put out by the Pentagon. All that is known at this hour is that the troops are being sent out of an abundance of caution to augment the forces already in the region. Now, I can also tell you, in the midst of all of this, the U.S. President Joe Biden has just met with the president of UAE. And what he has been saying in just the last hour or so is that he is going to be discussing the escalating situation, not only in Lebanon, but also what has been happening in Gaza. What we know is that they are going to discuss efforts to try and de-escalate the tensions, which are obviously escalating on multiple fronts. And he also says that he has been briefed on the situation and is in constant contact with counterparts in order to get the very latest information. The goal of the United States, as they've said repeatedly for at least a week or more, has been to try and resolve not only the situation, Israel's war on Gaza, but now this new front that is opening up towards Lebanon with diplomacy.
Kimberly Halkett, thank you so much as always. That is our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett there.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news.
My next guest knows the ins and outs of Lebanese affairs. He wrote recently, and I quote, "There is much talk of Israel wanting an all-out war in Lebanon. In fact, what we are seeing today was long expected for when Israel redeployed its troops to the north. We are in an escalation to the effect the outcome of negotiations not to provoke an all-out war." Marco Young is a former columnist and opinion editor at the Daily Star newspaper in Lebanon. He's now a senior editor for the Carnegie Endowment's Middle East Center in Beirut, and he joins us now live. It's good to have you, sir. And I just, if you will, just further explain the conceit of your argument here. What you see is what is, you say, ultimately expected by Israel at this point. You do not expect an all-out war, which would obviously mean, you know, a ground incursion by the Israelis. What evidence do you have?
One of the funniest parts about this dude is that he's in Lebanon. I think he's in Beirut, if this is the same guy I'm thinking of. And he's like, he's been like, you know, obviously pro-Israel when doing his coverage. But it's hilarious when you're literally standing underneath, you know, Israeli F-15s and your analysis changes in real time. I've watched him literally like talk about the terror attack in Lebanon with the pagers while Israeli jet fighters, or no, when Hassan Nasrallah was delivering his speech, he was like scared shitless because he heard the supersonic booms. When he was standing underneath the, you know, Israeli Air Force, I think it almost personalizes the aspect when you are treated like a, you know, Hamas militant all of a sudden, or a Hezbollah militant all of a sudden. It really changes the dynamic because, you know, they don't give a fuck about you because you're right there. Okay. It's like funny to think about how someone's analysis might change in real time. Oh, this is a Lebanese journalist that got that literally got bombed during a live broadcast. Yeah, that's what it looks like on the other side, for the record. That's what it looks like when you're, you know, when you're in the way of Israel. Yeah. Yeah, Michael Young, at Beirut Calling. Senior editor of the Carnegie Middle East Center, author of The Ghost of Martyrs Square, an eyewitness account of Lebanon's life struggles. When Israel said it's warned people to move away from Hezbollah's weapon stores, it takes an idiot to believe this is done in good faith. This is not information Hezbollah shares with residents, so basically they're killing innocents. Surprised? Question mark. Is this him? Is this his account? Is it Michael Young?
What are you basing that conjecture on?
Well, I'm basing it on my reading of the fact that the Israelis don't feel that they need to engage in a ground war. They've been escalating in the last 2 weeks significantly.
Oh, wait, this is not him. This is a different person. Never mind. This is a different person. This is a different person. I don't think this is the person I was thinking of. There's another like a CNN international guy. I think it's a different guy. He kind of looks like him though, like kind of schlubby. He was the one who I watched when he was the one who I watched like in real time change his attitude about like being perceived as an enemy combatant. You know, the unfortunate consequence of like being under you know, Israeli bombing. Isn't it? Is that him?
Their attacks against Hezbollah, beginning with the pager explosions and the walkie-talkie explosions, ending with.
Yeah, this is who I'm. Yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy. This is the guy.
Now, Israeli airplane overhead. Okay, Eleni, there's an Israeli fighter jet flying, dropping flares just now as Hassan Nasrallah is speaking. Didn't break the sound barrier, dropping more flares again, flying right north of Beirut, flew right over the city.
Like, I don't know why you probably shouldn't feel safe. You know, it don't matter how pro-Israel you might be at any given moment, you know?
Okay, so obviously the timing of that overflight was no mistake or coincidence. Clearly, the Israelis wanted to distract the many viewers of Nasrallah here in Beirut and in Lebanon as he makes that speech. But what we heard Hassan Nasrallah say was that Israel has crossed all red lines with the...
For the record, I want to point something out here, but he is far from the worst in terms of like the international correspondence that people have. He literally is like significantly better than the average international correspondent in terms of like their seemingly endless amounts of defense for whatever Israel's actions are. And even then, like I've heard him talk about these matters from the perspective of like being, he's not pro-Israel. He's a very fair man. There is no such position, okay? In Western media, I very, very, very little coverage on that front. Come on. I mean, you're saying that because you're rating on a scale here. You're literally, you're only saying that because like he's closer to both sidesing the situation, which implies that there is like a moral playing field, which implies that there is like a little bit of humanity into the way that that he offers coverage to like enemies of Israel.
Attacks, the pager blasts and the walkie-talkie blasts yesterday in Lebanon. He said that in a sense, Hezbollah and Lebanon got off lucky because he said that the intention was to kill as many as 4,000 people with these blasts. Clearly, the death toll, according to the Ministry of Health, was 37. That was 12 on Monday.
Anyway, Israel's trying to convince us Palestinian Arabs in Israel that Hezbollah wants to target us like they did in 2006 when all their military bases are literally around our towns. Yeah. Didn't Biden say you're on your own if Israel goes into Lebanon, or did I hallucinate that? Biden said a lot of shit. Biden has said a lot of shit. He doesn't know where the he is. So for him, it's like, it doesn't really matter. Who cares what the he says, bro? He also said red line is Rafah. Remember Biden's red line in Rafah? He was like, don't go into Rafah. That's my red line. Wonderful. They've eliminated the threat of grandmothers and children living in residential blocks.
With the assassination of Brahim Ail and several commanders of the Radwan force. Now what they've done is they've responded to Hezbollah's effort to match what the Israelis did last week. Yesterday, Hezbollah bombed several parts of northern Israel to try to create essentially a displacement of the population. So today the Israelis have come back and said, if you want to play this game, we will displace a large part of the population of southern Lebanon. It's a very nasty game, and the Israelis are actually targeting civilian areas. But this is where we are, unfortunately. And in other words,
80,000 automated calls to subscribers of the Lebanese.
I just want to ask another question here. Israel has the population registry of all Palestinians. That's what you do when you're a belligerent occupier. You have the mass surveillance mechanism, and you know exactly the zip code and down to the apartment number where each Palestinian lives. How the does Israel get to do robocalls in Lebanon? It seems like they are able to do the robocalls in Gaza, but source on that? What do you mean source on that? This is basic elementary level knowledge of Israel's targeting capabilities. Israel does mass surveillance 24/7 on the Gaza Strip and has the population registry of every single Palestinian. That's like 100%. That's not like, I don't know what to tell you about this. But what's shocking to me is that they were able to do this with Lebanese telecoms networks as well. Yeah, Palestinian births are registered in Israel's database. Like they have everything. This is so made up, Lamafeo. Wait, what? What is made up? I'm confused as to what you are saying is made up here. that Israel has the Palestinian registry and knows exactly where every single Palestinian lives in the Gaza Strip, or the fact that they sent like mass text blasts and were able to communicate with like Lebanese people living in Lebanon in the same way that they do like these mass blasts before they do a bombing campaign in Gaza. This, by the way, this, for the record, is like how they claim that they're the most moral military. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh yeah, we're doing it. When in fact, they're not actually interested in like getting people to leave that area. They just want to do terrorism. Like this is psychological warfare. To be like, you know, dropping leaflets before you blow up an area doesn't make your blowing up of the area more moral. Like if Osama bin Laden was like, I'm going to strike the Twin Towers before 9/11 and then did it, do you think that would be considered appropriate? Of course not. Yeah, the Israeli government site that details this process here, like it's their own government population registry. There it is. This is COJAT, Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories. Okay, COJAT is responsible for. COJAT is the department within the Israeli government that deals with Palestinians, like as the belligerent occupier. Okay, the Population Registry Office is responsible for updating and archiving the Palestinian population registry held by Israel in coordination with the Palestinian Authority in the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria, which is also known as the West Bank. Why do they have the population registry of all Palestinians in territories if they are not occupying said territories? This is a question that you might ask yourself. I certainly think about that all the time. I mean, there's a very obvious answer for it. It's because they are the belligerent occupiers. They're an occupying force on the occupied Palestinian territories illegally. Anyway, I'm going to run another ad break here, okay? At the top of the hour, 11 minutes in, and we're going to move on. They don't hide it, but conditioning allows people to go along with it. Here it is. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do, like I've said before, is subscribe for $4.20 in the month of September, or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get one free Prime subscription a month, or by getting gifted a sub. If you're lucky, here's a 3-minute ad break now. The evacuation orders help with whitewashing in the media? Yeah. Yeah, look. Israel's carpet bombing Lebanon, killing and injuring nearly 1,000 people. Evacuation warnings is Israeli PR language. Just like Gaza, the media is masking Israel's war crimes. Israel launches fresh strikes in Lebanon after evacuation warnings. Thanks, man. They should just simply get out of the way, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. This shit with the evacuation orders is even worse because at least Israel could say that Gaza isn't its own country and that Israel must exert some sort of control, which still would be ridiculous. But like that, there's a level of like logical justification from the Israeli side. But Lebanon is literally its own sovereign entity. This is straight up unjustifiable unless you're the genocidal darling of the West. Yes. And Israel does happen to be the genocidal darling of the West and is now broadening the conflict into Lebanon as well. How do they know where it's safe? Nowhere is safe. That's the problem. And a lot of people don't understand this because you have no way of analyzing the situation unless you've lived it. Okay? We here in the Western world have no way of recognizing the fear of existing next to or existing under the military occupation of a genocidal force. Okay? We get annoyed when we can't get our treats because like COVID lockdowns are happening. That's a level of restrictions that you feel as an American citizen is dominating your life, is like stopping you from doing something that you want to do, even if it's for your best interest. Okay? Now think about if there was a dominating force with a superior military that was getting endless amounts of support from the most dominant force on the planet, the United States of America, and they're not just like stopping you from getting your treats, they're blowing your homes up. And then when we cover it here in the Western world, we look at it like, oh, well, you kind of deserved it because you live there. It is a scale of atrocity that is unimaginable to all of us here in the Western world because we are so far removed from this conflict. That's why I always stress the importance of like Israel's military actions in the West Bank, because there is a personalization of that kind of violence in a way that you can understand even as an American citizen. Because when you got a settler with an AR-15 that is like doing a mass shooting, well, at least that's like more similar to a fear that an American citizen might have, like about going to school. They've seen it. They've experienced it before. They have a way of personalizing that violence. Whereas when you see city blocks reduce to rubble, that death, that carnage is in the media communicated forever in the post 9/11 world as like warranted death and destruction, a necessary side effect of trying to deal with terror. You just don't get, you literally cannot comprehend how insane this is if you are living in Lebanon, if you're living in Gaza, but especially if you're living in Lebanon, you're like living your goddamn life. You're going to school, okay? And then all of a sudden your school blew up. Why? Because Israel chose to do so and then claimed that Hezbollah is in your school. Think about that. Think about how insane that is. Try to understand it. Try to empathize with these people that now have to live under the oppressive thumb of this genocidal apartheid regime that has now chosen to expand the conflict into Lebanon. I haven't covered the Al Jazeera raid yet because, Israel's doing new shit on a daily fucking basis, seemingly hour after hour. So we haven't even gotten to that.
Telecoms company today, Israel urging people to evacuate their homes in the south and in the Bekaa Valley. The psychological effects here must be very, very tough. I mean, you are yourself in Lebanon, not necessarily, as I understand it, in Beirut. Can you just describe the impact on the Lebanese population of what is going on at present?
Yeah, of course. This war is very much a psychological war on both sides. And by essentially using some of these automated calls, for example, to warn ministries that they would be bombed, and the ministries are located in the very center of Beirut, they're trying to create a panic amongst the Lebanese population. And we're seeing the same thing in the Bekaa Valley now and in other parts of the south. Essentially what they're doing is they're hitting all over. And I'm very skeptical that this is just to hit Hezbollah targets. There's been plenty of footage today showing the Israelis hitting civilian quarters near Tyre, for example. They are essentially creating a humanitarian problem and saying to Hezbollah, you will have to resolve this problem. That's all they're doing.
It's so funny to just like have Western media basically describe terrorism without using the term, because that term is a political term that is applied only to the enemies of the American state or the Israeli state, enemies of ourselves and our allies. What this person described right here is just straight up what terrorism is designed to do. Okay? The issue is when Israel does it, it is not considered terrorism. Okay? No, you don't get it, Hasan. It's psychological warfare intended to spread fear among the population is not terrorism. Exactly. It like using the dictionary definition of terrorism while simultaneously avoiding the term is kind of funny. It'd be funny if it wasn't so damning and so obvious in its application here.
And it's very cruel.
While you and I have been talking.
Once again, if you want to predict what's going on in the future, one thing you can always do is look to the past, and you don't even look to you can look into the immediate past, the past year of Israel's actions in Gaza to understand exactly what the they're doing. Which is, someone in the chat joked and said, oh, when will we start hearing like Hezbollah run health ministry? You will hear it. You will hear it soon. And you don't have to have the gift of foresight bestowed upon you by Apollo or some shit to know that, because that is just how we operate, okay? That's it. And you can see it as like a trial balloon, right? What Israel did in Gaza and the way that the Western world reacted to it, or rather the lack of reaction and the lack of accountability, basically taught them the lesson that they wanted to learn, which is, oh, we can do whatever the fuck we want and get away with it they're not going to do shit about it. Okay? And that's precisely where we are. Who created the word, though? What do you mean? I mean, I don't know what like the original application of the word terror was. I don't know the etymology of it, but I suspect it was probably Western powers at a certain point. That doesn't really matter, though, because we're talking about the contemporary application of the term terrorism, which is specifically specifically utilized against non-state actors who are against the American state and against the Western superpowers in the world. It was after Napoleon Bonaparte almost got assassinated. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what the historical usage of the term is. What matters right now is the designation and what that designation does. That designation plays a very formative role in the way that the broader society looks at the people who are quote unquote terrorists. That designation also has a lack of legal standards in terms of how you can treat these enemy combatants. They are no longer standard enemy combatants. The rules of war do not apply to said enemy combatants. They are now considered terrorists, as in enemy combatants that you can deny habeas corpus laws to, that you can officially deny normal human rights to. You can torture them. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Capri Sun Poppy, thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good stream.
Lebanon's health ministry has just announced 274 now killed in the Israeli strikes on Lebanon. We had been quoting a number of 180 up until this point, so the numbers increasing. Sadly, these are deadly strikes. The Israelis' argument is that they are striking Hezbollah buildings, storing weapons amongst civilians. And they will suggest that some of the videos that are being seen of their strikes show secondary explosions, indicating that missiles are...
Classic. Oh my God. Again, classic. Well, but there were secondary explosions. Like, obviously, they were actually striking missile depots, right? I mean, it's classic. Secondary explosions. Remember, secondary explosions. They did this with Gaza as well. Okay, they did this with Gaza as well. Yeah, make no mistake. There's no way that it could be a gas line. There's no way that it could be near, I don't know, a fire that catches a bombing campaign that ends up causing secondary explosions as a direct consequence of like hitting, I don't know, like a gas station or anything like that. They did this. Literally, they did this with a tent city in Rafah, if you recall. Secondary explosions. I mean, maybe there was a weapons depot right there. Once again, it is always the same attitude. And it's wild that, like, CNN is still reporting on it in the same way.
Stored underneath residential buildings. What do you make of the very targeted warnings from the Israelis and their argument as to why they are attacking Lebanon at present?
Well, I mean, I've seen that footage. It's true. They have hit what looks to be arms storage facilities. But honestly, we have to move beyond this. This is, as I said, this is a war. This is to reach a political objective. The Israelis, of course, have killed nearly 300 people, but they want a political objective here. It's to force Hezbollah to retreat from the border north of the Litani River. And in order to do so, as I said, they want to create a humanitarian problem for the party, and particularly for the Shia community. So, I mean, I would take with a grain of salt. Not everything they've hit today was Hezbollah arms depot. And the fact of the matter is, most citizens, when they tell them to leave an area, if you live near an arms depot, leave this area. Well, most Lebanese don't know that they're sitting next to an arms depot, or even if there is an arms depot in their neighborhood, of course. So there is an element of psychological warfare here. They want to...
Oh, dude, yeah. It's just the arms depot, dude. They're all over. That's just what it is, dude. That's why it's allowed to do so. You're allowed to do so. Make no mistake, okay? Territory struck in northern Israel that are direct military targets by Hezbollah, that's terrorism. That is done specifically to get everyone in northern Israel to leave northern Israel evacuate to the nearest bomb shelter, or just like leave northern Israel altogether. Okay. But if it happens in Lebanon with zero indication that this is actually a military base or anything like that, then that is not an act of terror. They're just engaging in a defensive posture while also simultaneously trying to do psychological warfare on the civilian population, which, make no mistake, is not terror when Israel does it. Okay?
Panic. They want to create panic.
By the way, if you want to, I guess, see the laughable defenses that they have engaged in for these actions, they're doing the exact same. They're doing the exact same shit that they did. Okay. Warning: Israel's in the process of doing a deception campaign in order to justify bombing the homes of southern Lebanon. They're dropping illumination flares and bombing homes with small ammunition multiple times to make it look like weapons depots exploding. This video shows clearly the small bombs dropping from the sky to simulate the explosions with the flare. I don't know the veracity of this. I don't know the veracity of like this video. I don't know if it's like directly from this incursion or if it's from another one. It is. That's an ammo depot? No, it's not. No, the is not, brother. What are you talking about? It sounds, first of all, the secondary explosions. I mean, look, I'm not an expert on this at all, but the secondary explosions are never that consistent. But we're not going to engage in like Twitter video, OSINT Andy shit. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it is an arms depot. It still doesn't justify Israel's bombing campaign. Hasanabi is an expert again. Oh, here we go. Hasanabi is an expert again. I mean, okay, let me ask you something before you cynically refuse to hear what I'm saying. Okay, in terms of me being like, I'm not an expert. It looks a little weird, but who knows? Before you listen to those words, because you failed to comprehend that and immediately went with a cynical, oh, here we go again. Hasanabi's an expert again. I'm sure you're going to turn around and do like the remember the JDAM shit. Okay, yep, there it is. Hasanabi's only an expert in JDAMs. Have you like even remotely accounted for all of the genocide defense that your spiritual intellectual debate daddy has presented over the course of the past 12 months at this point? Like, has there ever been a moment where you're like, man, we got a lot of things wrong. Don't associate me with them fools. Okay, well then don't behave like one of them fools. Because it's so crazy to be like, to still talk about like Al Ahly, which by the way is still, we do not have full-blown confirmation on Al Ahly, but it's regardless of what has happened in Al Ahly, it is crazy because they lied about Al Shifa, they lied about Al Ahly, they lied about every hospital that they blew up, okay, for 12 months. Like there was never there. I have been so consistent and so correct, and the people that still try to hold on to like this notion that I was like wrong, haha, we got him, have just weirdly stopped talking about these things, and they only rear their head. They only rear their ugly little heads anytime they think they can catch like a good one, like slip that in. It's interesting. Latest health ministry numbers are 492 dead, 1,645 injured. What you lie, tunnel under Shifa is not enough. What? Keep watch. As Israel is doing a genocide in Gaza with more than 40,000 dead, majority women, children, and the elderly. 14 pages alone in terms of the casualties is under the age of 1, right? 14 pages worth of under the age of 1, like babies that were killed. Ruthlessly slaughtered. Okay. As Israel then turns its crosshairs onto another sovereign nation that happens to be another sovereign nation that happens to be to have the misfortune of being neighbored with Israel, and Israel is like viciously blowing them up and lying every step of the way in the exact same way that they have lied about Gaza. Okay. You still turn around and go, remember Al Ahly? Come on. You're not a serious person. You're not. Wait till we get to, this was a Hezbollah rocket that misfired. It'll happen, you know?
In the community and make people in Lebanon, but particularly supporters of Hezbollah, they want to create an element of panic, and they want them to leave the south. And indeed, many have left the south today and have streamed into other parts of Lebanon.
And we've seen the images of thousands of people on the move. As we have seen similar images of people, of course, on the move for, what is it, nearly a year in Gaza. And I hear many people talking about the Gazification of Lebanon at this point. You have suggested just in this interview that the strategy, as you say, is to create this sort of humanitarian sort of situation in Lebanon as well. Just how far do the Israelis go at this point? There are, from some in government, talk of rewriting the very lines of Lebanon as a country, rewriting the borders. I mean, how far does this go, sir?
Well, I mean, at this stage in time, there doesn't seem to be an effort to redraw Lebanon's borders. On the contrary, I mean, my suspicion is that the Israelis want to avoid a land incursion into Lebanon. They're trying to get the message to Hezbollah, it seems, that
Do they? It doesn't seem like it.
They can escalate short of an invasion, because they know that an invasion would actually lead to all-out war, in which Hezbollah would probably bring in its larger precision missiles. At this point, however, what they seem to be doing is they're offering Hezbollah the following equation.
Guys, everybody understands that a ground invasion incurs a heavy price for the Israeli military. Israel understands this better than anyone else. This has already happened, and they already failed in Lebanon. This is precisely the reason why they're engaging in the same exact bombing campaign that they engaged in Gaza. Okay? That's the point. The point is, you literally pummel Lebanon as hard as you can, so then your cowardly troops can storm and kill the rest of whoever the they want to kill in the area. Anyway, yeah, they don't send in the diaper squad until they've completely destroyed the land. Okay, the diaper brigade only comes in after they feel comfortable that they won't get attacked from the buildings. When there are no buildings that are left that are sustainable, that every building has become a death trap, basically. Only then does the diaper brigade roll in with their tanks. Why do you make it sound like a ground invasion into a built-up area is easy? That's suicidal. It's never easy. That is precisely the reason why they haven't even been able to destroy Hamas militarily. Besides obviously Hamas being an idea and a form of resistance, and not simply a standing military force that you can eviscerate. Okay, it is difficult. It is, if not damn near impossible. Hey Hassan, I'm Lebanese. If Harris would be better at foreign policy than Trump, I hope, would Harris deal with Israel in a tougher way than Biden? I mean, she has the capacity as vice president and also currently the presidential candidate to deal with Israel in a tougher way than Biden, but she's not. And if I could predict this happening, right? And I don't even think this was a crazy prediction, because I've been saying for months now, literally 4 months, what Israel is doing. Now, I've said 4 months Israel would inevitably do. And if I could see it, I'm sure they can as well.
If you want to escalate and lead to all-out war, then it's your responsibility. And the backlash will be against you in Lebanon. But if you don't want to escalate and start hitting Israeli cities and infrastructure using your large missiles, then you're going to have to accept that we will continue to escalate until you accept our conditions on the border. This is the dilemma that they're trying to create for Hezbollah.